All right, welcome back, everybody, to the NARPM podcast. And as promised, got world famous, well renowned podcast host himself, Mark Ainley here. Mark, thanks so much for being here, brother.
Ah, man, Pete, any chance I get to hang out with you and maybe give back to the community if that's what it turns out here, like I'm down. So thanks for wanting to have me on here.
Awesome, brother. So, listen, the reason why I asked you on this podcast is because for years you've created a podcast and you have built GC Realty with our good buddy Cliff McHugh into a powerhouse. I think you guys. I talk to Cliff but about every other week, just kind of in a mastermind, and I know you guys are rolling around 1,500 units, mostly single family, not HOA, not multifamily, and you literally built the majority of this on the back of the podcast. And I just think it's fascinating. So just kind of talk about like how you decided to do it, how long you've been doing it, and kind of the evolution. And then let's talk about like all the benefits and why every property manager should have a podcast in their own market.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it kind of goes, the podcast has been doing it for 4 years now. So we started right before COVID. It had nothing. It was just coincidentally. It wasn't like we did it because of COVID. But so it happened just before then. And it really is an extension or a modernization of really how we started as a company from the beginning. And when I say that, it was always being the go-to person. The way I was able to connect, network, refer other people was always like, hey, it's Chicago, right? Joke, I got a guy. But yeah, you're from New York, same thing. But that was always kind of the mentality. But what that created was community, and it's a kind of a buzzword these days. But that's what it created. It created this group of real estate investors or people, entrepreneurs, people looking to grow financial freedom. It started more of on the heels of bigger pockets, and you build this community and you build it locally, and it turned into then the next evolution of that was the podcast, and then those people you built in that initial community. I mean, we're going to talk about lots of people, but those couple hundred people were your first listeners to the podcast.
So one of the things is like as a property manager company, we always should have a guy. We always have a guy. I got a real estate guy, I got a maintenance guy, I got a title guy. We always have a guy. And so you just kind of took that to the next level. And when you started the podcast, what was the intention? Was the intention to grow the property management? Did you really not have an intention? Like tell me what the intention was and then like what's actually transpired while you were building that podcast?
Yeah, so the mindset behind the podcast. So, all right, so let me take a step back. So between '08 and 18, when the market crashed, me and Cliff and our third partner, Brian, we did a bunch of Burr properties. We did 482 Burrs. So bought them, renovated them, rehabbed, refinanced, rented out, whatever that order is for Burr. And we did that, and I learned so much doing that. Right? I always say I made $1,000 mistakes. I made $1 million of mistakes, and after there's a point in 2018 where like, all right, prices went up. I mean, little did we know at that point, but in hindsight, but at that point we're like, price gone up, there's a lot more competition, so let's focus more on the property management side of things. It was always operating. Now we're going to put our attention there. Our ROI would be better on the time being spent on the property management company. So I went into the role of a BDM, like, hey, that was around the time you guys were coming up and at Empire and operationalizing sales and marketing, and I jumped into the BDM role and the marketing role, and it was it was that time where I realized that damn, Pete, I'm sorry, man, I totally forgot even where I was going with that. I had something.
No
Hopefully, you
worries.
can edit that.
No worries. We'll edit that. Yeah.
What was the actual question? Because I can either pick back up or I can make the first part shorter.
Yeah. Well, let's just pick it back up. So, what was the main, like when you started the podcast, what was the intention behind starting the podcast?
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So when I jumped into as in sales and marketing, my goal was I found right away I was successful selling property management by sharing my failures, everything I did wrong, and
Yeah.
helping people that maybe didn't even realize they're about to make a mistake, helping them through, whether it be just the right neighborhood, that using the right contractor, renting out at the right rate, or just buying in the wrong HOA. Like, so I realized I was helping a lot of people. I was only helping people on I call it 20, 30 people at a time on a weekly basis. And that might have been a heavy week as a BDM. And I realized, man, the podcast is like we could reach so many more people. We could be so much more impactful. And our original goal with the podcast, like if we can, talk to 200 people a month, that's still more than I could do if I was talking to them individually.
Right. So one of the challenges that I've seen in this industry is that many of us in property management don't actually go and find and purchase the homes for the investor. The investor buys the home through another realtor, typically one that says he's going to rent the property way higher than he could. And then we get it, and then we have to kind of deal with the aftermath. And I've always felt like we should be one step ahead. And like we should be like, instead of the caboose, we should be in the front of the train where we get them, build those relationships, and then help them purchase properties. And because most of our clients are investors, right? That's kind of most of our clients, not all, that was anyway. At Empire was heavy on investors over uh, people who are moving away and then wanted to move back. When you decided to build this podcast, to talk about like what you built it for and how you built it. Like, for example, I know you're not trying to be national. You are really diving into Chicago and you're like for investors. So talk a little bit about that and why you decided to model it that way.
Yeah, I will say, timing is everything. I think we're lucky. No one else had a podcast like we're starting to think could be valuable in a huge market like Chicago. So we're just kind of super lucky timing. Bigger Pockets was kind of super big at that point, and they still are, but they're not what they were 5, 6 years ago. But taking what they're doing and just making it very localized. People talk about Chicago or the suburbs here, they kind of say it's street by street, and there's a lot of that street level knowledge that if you want to be successful here, you got to know that. And we knew we could get that information out to people. So really just adding value to other people is 100% was 100% of the goal. I started my podcast co-host. It's not someone that works at GC. I mean, he's a broker here now, but he started out, he was a client of ours at the time. He's just an investor minded client, younger guy that he was just really hungry to learn more about Chicago real estate and talk to more people. And that was super beneficial because, that wasn't even a resource that the company had to use at that point to have two people on there. I know a lot of people, property managers, um, they'll say, "Oh, it's a lot of time." It's not. We'll talk about more of the logistics of this later on. But when you do have two people, you don't always have to be thinking 100% about it. You might know that as well too. You have someone to parlay off. If I'm having a bad day, my co-host picks up on the question. So that was super valuable to help us at least, get out running, I guess.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the benefits of having a podcast and how it affected your business, GC, and then we'll get into like the logistics of actually how to get started, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's just talk a little bit about that. Like, so I know you talked about like recruiting. So how did that help with recruiting?
Having a platform that you're able to speak directly to real estate investors, at our age is, I think it's 25 to 35 is like a majority of our listeners. People that are interested in real estate, people that just want to be around real estate, and people that line it in the mission of just having that passion around real estate. Like when we have a job opening that we're hiring locally, obviously it doesn't work on the remote side of things, but when we're hiring someone locally, that's the go-to place. You put it out there, you put the message out there. I got my BDM from there. We started doing using 1099 workers for like move out. So we use the inspector. So instead of having our technicians go out there, we pay a guy kind of gig work. We do that kind of with showings as well too. So we kind of create that. But I'm able to go to this community and simply put it out there like, hey, anyone wants to learn more about the move out process, and get paid. And you're able to kind of recruit people, like-minded people that just want to be around the podcast, want to be around real estate, and want to be around other people that are successful.
And also when you hold the microphone, you become the expert. And so you built through that podcast, you became the expert in real estate in Chicago. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it definitely. You're able to, yes, for sure. People view you as you know what you're doing, and that definitely helps when you're getting compared to somebody else.
Are you able to determine how many leads or how many properties you manage from the podcast? Are you able to track that at all?
I'm not able to track that exactly, and it's no different than the Google AdWord type problem that we all have is like they might click on the Google word, but then they come back 2 weeks later and they hire you, and you're not sure, you can't directly correlate it back to it. But
Right, right.
where we do get one, you get business through people that find you and then see the legitimacy of you through the podcast. You get people that we'll get people that call us up on the property management side, which is a different problem, and say, "Oh man, I actually know that podcast. I didn't realize that was you guys. I didn't realize it too." So that means I'm not branding it 100% correctly enough sometimes. But then you get a lot of our audience is self managers, which is not a bad thing. We all know the blue ocean of self managers out there. So call it that's your slow drip. But then those people are confident enough to refer us. So we end up getting a lot of referrals of listeners that might not be familiar with it, and then it's also something that we provide the realtors with. We got 30,000 realtors here in the Chicago market, and we can provide them with that content, which helps them easily refer stuff over, which I know our numbers are like 10x on the realtor referral side here just in the last couple of years. And I know that has something to do with it.
Are you when you do your when you do the podcast, do you actually do any kind of commercials for GC Realty in the podcast or for other agencies or other companies?
Yeah. So in 2020, it started off as an expense under the marketing for property management. And, I think, 10, 12 episodes in, someone's like, "Hey man, I'll pay you if you let me do a commercial." And we're like, "Sure," but I just don't know even how to figure that out. But ultimately, the first couple of years, we were profitable. Actually, we've been profitable every single year. It's never cost us anything when you take in the money that we take in for ads, and then we'll throw some GC ads on there, especially when around times when we're hiring, and then and then it just ends up being, but then that ends up being something a little more harder to do. We've been working now, kind of shifted more of affiliations. Use this QR code. We promote somebody,
That's
and
right. And BPM Solutions is actually going to be the
yep.
latest
So
affiliate
we're gonna be doing
program.
that with you here in the upcoming weeks, and that's a little. If we could put it out there once, promote it, then it ends up being a little. A little more inconsistent, but a little more easier kind of lift as far as managing all of the sponsorships. So
All right. So basically what you're saying is you can create a podcast and it could break even or actually make some money. It doesn't have to be a loss leader to get. So really, in theory, any lead you get from the podcast is really a no cost because the podcast itself is making money in its
yeah, I mean, the only thing you can really chalk it up to might be time, which we could talk about time dedicated here shortly. But and I think I'll tell you this: I don't even think we exercise as much of the opportunity of the market as I think about this. If, we have 15,000, 16,000 downloads a month. For a local guy that trashes out houses, or a local guy that does
that's a
rehab
lot of
loans or hard
downloads.
money, like man, there's no more of a niche. We're a niche podcast, and like so to get those niche vendors is huge. And that's been we probably have not even scratched the surface of what we could probably do with that without being annoying to our listeners.
Well, it feels like that you're opening yourself up to not just property management, but like you can now, if you wanted to start an investor club, you have a built-in audience. You can literally turn these people into an investor club if you like a bigger pockets, or if you wanted to steer people to your real estate department, right? And have agents helping these folks buy investment properties, you're able to steer them that way as well. So you're getting a client, like I always felt like property management is like you're getting a client at the caboose. Like that's like the end of it, right? You're getting a client at the very beginning and you have the whole life cycle of the client.
Yeah, we did start a brokerage team. So we did a DBA under GC Realty, straight up brokerage. So everything kind of ties in back with the straight up concept and then the logo. So we did do that on the brokerage side. Again, you start doing these things, and if you don't put it, you get out what you put into it. So I mean, it has been killer. But there's all those different opportunities that definitely branch off. And the other thing that's actually generated us money is throwing parties. I don't know, Pete, I don't remember. I think it was Austin a few years ago where they had the event guy. He went up on stage. He said, "This is how you throw events, $1,000, and I'll show you how to throw events." And I remember Cliff bought that, and I'm like, oh man, like I hate throwing events, especially somewhere like Chicago, right? So anyone up here, it's
I just
summer.
and I'm just saying, I just saw somebody on Facebook that just had an event that's some rooftop thing just a couple of weeks
Well,
ago.
no, I'll tell you, I'll circle back here. I hate the events of like, in Chicago, there's a thunderstorm, no one comes. If there's in the afternoon, big storm whips through. In the winter, it's too cold. Like, but what this gave us was the opportunity to start throwing these parties and charge people. And a lot of times realtors throw events, mortgage brokers throw events, and it's like, oh yeah, it's free, and someone's sponsoring the food, but it's like no one shows up then ever, or it's a lot more difficult people. But we found the opportunity to, because of this community, people are willing to pay 50, 60, $70 to come out to an event. You just mentioned we had the straight up rooftop event mixer here a couple months ago, and we had 100 people out there, and so that's another way that
And
offsets some of
everybody
our
paid to
expenses.
be there. Everybody
Yeah,
paid
and
that
100
part.
people that pay to be there,
And if
and
you get any
that's
leads from that, that doesn't cost you any money because it's a
yeah. But then now you got FaceTime
revenue.
too, so now you're meeting people, and you're actually they're kind of excited to be around these other people. You're mixing with guests, which they listen to guests and they want to be that guest, so now they're getting the opportunity. You're kind of bringing people together, and it's kind of cool in that sense. But so events has actually became something that's possible to do without having to deal with all the like trying to drag people out there. Now you got people that want to come to the events.
All right. So you, by having a podcast in your area, you become the expert. You get to network and you get to connect people. You get to build your own community. You get to, find great people, hire people, um, and then gives you legitimacy and it gives you basically you are the expert. And then here you also said in our green room you talked about put you in rooms that you wouldn't be in on new issues. Talk a little bit about that.
Again, I don't know how this happened, but
Happened because you have a podcast with 15,000 downloads a month.
yeah, but we became they passed a pretty big ordinance, like a really stupid ordinance in one of the little neighborhoods in the city. But now we have Chicago Apartment Association, we have Chicago Association of Realtors, we have some of the neighborhood building owner groups. Like they come to us or they include us in these conversations because they know we'll turn around and most of the time be on their side because we're more on the landlord side than the tenant side with stuff or city
Sure.
side and help promote it. So we
Yeah,
became
not too
now
many tenant advocacy groups reaching out to you, huh?
yeah. The funny thing is, we had somebody on a couple weeks ago. Actually, we're trying to play in the middle there. To no matter what, we all want something in the middle, and just gotta play both sides of that fence, Pete.
Spoke like a true
But
politician. Is that the next thing, mayor of Chicago?
no way. But anyways, we're able to get in these conversations with people because they know that we're media. Then we're able to get that message out there for whatever they need. So they include us on how to promote these type of messages or get the call to actions in place for people to reach out to the alderman or the mayor and stuff like that.
So, all right, if somebody's listening to this, then like they're all fired up, like, oh my God, if Mark and Pete can do podcasts, I surely can do a podcast. So talk to me about what does that look like? How much time, how much maybe some money invested? How hard is it to get all set up? Like,
Well, I
are
love
you in
telling
a
the story
studio right
because
now? Or are you like in your office? Like, tell me where you're set up.
so we have two setups here. I'm in this is where we do our Zoom recordings here. We built out this year. And we had a 19-year-old college intern that was helping us on the podcast. So we get some volunteer help too for people that want to just kind of be around it and have the skill set that us older guys don't have, video editing and stuff like that. But he's
Yep.
like, hey man, if you guys want to make it, you guys have been doing this for 4 years. If you guys want to stay relevant, like you guys start doing in person. So this 19-year-old talked us into spending whatever 10, 12 grand building out a room downstairs and start doing stuff in person, which was awesome. It was the best ROI we could have gotten for kind of next steps of the podcast. But um, I love telling the story because I did it the hard way. Man, we spent 8, 9 weeks trying to figure out how to get on iTunes and do all this stuff. And the funny thing is it all circles back to a property management friend, Jeremy Pound. I don't know. I think I was venting to him like, I want to do this, but man, it's such a pain in the butt. And he's like, oh no. He told me I got a guy. He's actually a girl. I got a girl for you. She's in Florida.
Jeremy, that's actually true. Jeremy has all the women around him.
Yep. So he referred me to somebody that does everything for me. I think I jumped on a call with her like that next day. I spent 8 weeks and countless time getting it. She charged me $800 and I was on iTunes within like 8 days. Like, like it was awesome. Like
Wow.
I don't know where pricing is now. I'm sure it's gone up a little, but she was the who, we all who not how. She
Yep.
was my who that I was missing in the point, and I had no clue what I didn't know about it, and she basically jumped on the call, got us all set up, and there's a few other property management industry that have used her as well too, and it's fairly affordable. She handles the editing every week. She handles we do 6 episodes a month, so she does all the editing, she does all that, and I think on an annual basis, I think we pay her 11, 12,000 a year, like total for doing everything that after. So Yumi are going to end this podcast. I simply drag and drop this to a folder. She takes care of everything, comes back, says, hey, can you review it? Obviously there's standards, there's things we set up. We tell her what commercial we want to put in there, but it really, it's me showing up here and talking to clients, and then she does all
Right.
that kind of
So
post
your
show
job
stuff.
really is to come up with the content and get the guests.
Yeah, yeah,
Really, that's it.
and if you have the right guests, and depending on what you're, for us, we're always just trying to find real estate investors that are cool with being vulnerable about their mess ups, because no one cares. Like, people may be listening to us right now, like, oh, he makes it sound so easy. Like, no one wants to usually hear that part. They want to hear how horrible it was, how shitty it felt the day you realized you got stopped for no permits the second time. Like, they want to hear all that, like all the pain points. So
Misery loves company, man.
yeah, so our goal is to get those people on there that are vulnerable enough that want to share that, and that's what resonates with the audience. Okay, it is hard, and if I just know this, I don't have to do this. And the cool thing that has came from it is you get these. I posted something on Instagram today. Someone was motivated by us, like, I listened to this episode, I want to be like him, my goal is to be a guest on your show. And then you'll get these other ones where we're doing it 4 years now. It's like, hey, it was all because of you, I bought a property. And then you get a kind of a follow-up, it's all because
That's
you have
pretty
on my
cool.
third property. I don't necessarily get that management, but no doubt in this small world that guy knows 6 or 10 people I know that someday, the management conversation will come up that will tie back to us.
Yeah, or he buys 10 properties and he needs a manager.
Yes, that's where we get a lot of management too. It's like, hey man, I want to keep growing, but I can't do this management anymore, and that's where
But
they outsource. And they
right,
find the
but
who's.
that guy, anytime he thinks of anything real estate, he's going to think about you and your company,
Yes,
right? So, all right. So if I'm a property manager, I'm listening to this. I'm like, okay, I want to, how much equipment, how much is the cost of equipment just to start? Like, and you can, because you can start from your home. You don't need to go get a studio. You don't need to have these big boards. Like you can literally just get started with basically just kind of like a board and a microphone and having Zoom or something like that.
that's
Like,
it. I mean, you have your camera on your on your laptop, which you could use. You could upgrade to a 4K camera, which I did that.
right,
You could use your iPhone earbuds. You should upgrade to maybe a microphone like the one I'm on right now. I don't think this thing's more than $60 with the
right.
with the pole, the stand that kind of hooks to the side.
Yep.
And that's it. If you're outsourcing the
And
editing, then it just
you can have
becomes a
like a little
marketing game.
soundboard for like a couple of $100, I guess, right? You can have like a little soundboard.
Yeah, if you need that, or you want to put the big the light, I don't know what they call them
Oh,
before,
the
but
O-rings, the ring light.
yeah. But
Yeah.
even then, I don't think you
But
you
you can
need all
get
that stuff.
basically for a few $100, you can get started.
Oh yeah, very very easily. Yeah.
And then if you because but then you like after you do that, right? You have to have a cut sheet. Somebody has to cut the podcast. Somebody has to input the commercials. Like there's some editing. You can learn that, or you can do what you did, the who, not how, and you can hire somebody. And there are tons of companies out there that will help you with your podcast.
You could hire somebody probably through VPN that knows how to do it, and they just work directly for you. I know a couple people have done that. So I mean that's something. I know another property
Right.
manager that does exactly that. He keeps it all. Someone else does it, but he keeps it all in house with his RTMs.
Yeah. Now, if you are thinking about doing this, I recommend basically listening to listen to Mark's podcast, gleam off of what he's doing, and just kind of mimic him. I mean, you don't have to rebuild the wheel here. Just become the expert in your city. Like if I'm in Houston and I started a podcast, instead of like being like top level, like high level business, get down and dirty and talk about deals and areas in your neighborhood, right? And investing in your hometown. That
What the cool
that's
thing, I
really
didn't know this back then, but now, which is even more encouraging to anyone that's contemplating this, is like the amount of just podcasts in general that get past like 10 episodes is like 1%. Like it's some crazy number that people fizzle
really
out. So it's like to get to do 20 or 30 podcast episodes, you're like in the top 5% of people that ever like as far as how far distance you go. Like it's crazy. You think, we open our iTunes and all that, we see a million things, but no, those are the single digit percentage that actually have made it past this hardly past threshold of only like 10 episodes.
Now tell me, how do you use your podcast in your marketing or if you do use your podcast in your marketing? for GC, for property management, for the real estate division. Do you guys do anything where you cut like little clips, you put them in your email marketing, like anything like with that you do?
I think when I started off, everything we talked about today and everything I kind of wrote out just to kind of think about this, getting prepared for this, that was the number one reason. Like, all right, if no one ever hires us, at least I'll create a whole bunch of content. And that was hugely valuable, and it still is. And think about this. So every Thursday we send out an email of the new episode, and that goes to whatever 40, 50,000 people. So you have a reason to blast people. Think about this. It goes the content we share with our the realtor community, the 30,000 people I was talking about before. I mean, as a property manager, you can only say, "Hey, hire us. We'll pay you. We'll pay your referral fee." Like that only resonates so long before it's like you're just noise in the background. But if you're giving them
Right.
new content, we started every 2 weeks emailing the realtors, and we kind of create a newsletter for realtors. I think we call it the realtors property manager or something like that. We put some hook point name on that, but this gives them it gives you actual real investor content to help educate someone like that. Now, the other huge part
Okay.
with that is, my BDM or myself jumps on a call with someone. They're like, "Oh man, I'm thinking about buying in this neighborhood." It's like, "Hey, listen, I did a whole episode on that neighborhood. I'm going to send you when we get off the phone. I'm going to send you that episode. You got to listen to it because this guy's going to tell you everything not to do there."
Right. Great. So you gave me two things that I'm like, one is I need to add the NARPM podcast to my newsletter. So my latest podcast so that more people know about the podcast. And number two, this is you just kind of brushed over this, but you have multiple newsletters. Did I catch that? So you have one for realtors. I'm assuming you have one for your clients as well.
Yeah, so we have one that goes out every 2 weeks to the realtors, and then we have the one that goes out every single week to everyone in our CRM, everyone in our Elite Simple, like old, new, all that stuff, and that. So it's two different. I think
Have
that one.
name, have email, we'll send you letter.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So that's all those emails we collected over the years. It's been
Yeah.
huge, and that pays off, and it's great. People reply back. We just then started doing with Mailchimp the more of the personalized email where it doesn't look as scripted. So we're doing some A/B testing on that. I know that's separate from the podcast, but Mailchimp has been kind of a great tool for us to kind of keep testing all this different stuff.
How are you growing your podcast? What do you think is the number one way you're growing your podcast?
Um, it ends up being just through kind of constantly promoting the shows, and I think our it's very easy to see how many downloads you have on a weekly basis. And when we're slacking or maybe we didn't post as many times that week, you could definitely see the views go down. So our
Would
ability
you
to stay
say
consistent helps grow that. And the other thing that we have to keep doing, and the reason you have to keep doing that, because you get your loyal followers that subscribe and it falls into their thing every week. But I think real estate investors go through seasons as well too. It's like, oh, I'm amping up. I'm going to do all my research to buy a property. I'm going to be gun ho. And then once you buy your property, now you're busy doing something else, and the podcast falls behind. So you have to
you
keep.
imagine that property because you didn't hire a property manager like GC Realty?
Well, no, yeah, but if they're redoing that rehab that they've never done before, and they're
Yeah,
screwing
I
themselves
get
on
it.
that somehow, but yeah, for sure. So you get that, and then also just next generation. So we realized last year we start kind of hitting the next generation that didn't realize that we're here yet. The 20 young, just out of college people.
Got it. So would you say that like social posts is paramount to keeping that word that out there, or is it inside your email drip campaign, or it's all of the above?
I think it's all of the above. The other place that we use those videos for is in the lead simple drip. So if I'm you know, when people are, when people just call in with a new lead, your BDM, you have some sort of drip, call it the first 20 days is I think what we call it,
Right.
before you put into your kind of your long-term drip. But, you put a couple of clips in there and that helps again, back to the legitimate, makes you seem legitimate. And then ongoing, you keep like, hey, if you ever want to know about this neighborhood or here's the 2024 eviction laws here in Chicago. Like, so as we update it every year, we always put specific episodes back in there just to kind of, that's another place we use it too.
And I'm assuming if I type in Chicago real estate investment, your podcast is going to be one of those first ones.
I'm hoping. So, for sure.
Right?
So
SEO still becomes important in all of that. Mark, is there anything that I have not touched on that you're like, oh, Pete, I got to tell you about this with regards to podcasts or just in marketing in general?
Well, just talking about marketing in general. Like I said, I started doing it in 2018, and I was looking for that silver bullet. I mean, I was the guy calling Jeremy, and Jeremy referred me to somebody, or not Jeremy, whether it be Jeremy or Jordan, or I was like, I just need the silver bullet. I need the who. I thought I had there was a who out there for my marketing. And the one thing I realized over the years is our marketing has become our like who we are, and call it our culture, or our. It's really hard to outsource your marketing if you really want to have personality behind your marketing. And this podcast has just been an evolution that's rolled into our personality and our marketing. And I think it's a lot of people try to outsource it, but that actually is who you really are. And it's important to keep that close.
And I cannot agree more with that. I have been approached numerous times for somebody to hire a remote team member to run your social, and I'm like, yeah, if they want to run the company social, I have no problem with that. But every time I want them to run my social, it's just not my voice. It's not who I am. And your social is supposed to be who you are, right? So your marketing, your podcast, your voice, if somebody's doing it for you, it's just not you, you know? And you almost sound like a fraud, right? And so you don't sound like the person that who you are. It's not congruent with who you are a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, man. We are just about up against it. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna put you in the lightning round. That's my
I thought it was a toilet
that's
flushing. I
lightning.
didn't know that was a lightning.
Yeah, the property manager brain on you. We'll be right back, everybody. All right, we're back here. Mark Ainley from GC Realty and the host of what is it? Straight Up? Is it
Straight up Chicago investor.
Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast? Highly recommend that if anybody is interested in starting a podcast, subscribe to his podcast, listen to it. We're gonna let Mark talk. Give him his. We'll have him give his contact information here in a little bit after the lightning round. But honestly, when I heard Mark and I heard about his podcast, I'm like, that is brilliant. I don't know, many people don't know this, but Steve and I actually had a radio show in Houston for a little while, and that was expensive because you have to pay, and then you had to go to the radio station. So we were always trying to get vendors to buy airtime from us and would give them like we'd invite, it just became a lot. And then with the podcast, your cost to create a podcast versus a radio show is completely different. And you can track more. With the radio show, I couldn't track anything. I had to like put like special 800 numbers, see if anybody actually
Yeah.
listens,
I,
you know?
I was on a radio show too at that time when we first started. It's funny you brought that up. I forget about that, but that was part of my like buy into the podcast. I'm like, man, I'm paying this other guy, this other host to be on his show. I get about 2 minutes of talk time. He interrupts me most of the time. I never get my full message out. And at my own show, I get a full hour. I could go do 10 episodes a week. I like the amount of control in the voice that I could have do my own thing versus what I was paying him. Like it totally solidified like what I was doing at the time.
All right, here we go. Lightning round. All right, what property management software do you use at GC Realty?
At Folio, but we've built out Podio as far as a task management system.
Do you use virtual assistants?
Yes,
How many BDMs do you have?
one.
What is one piece of advice you'd give someone just starting out in the PM business?
Do it 100% virtual and make your first hire remote.
Yeah, that's a great one. Okay. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yeah,
Oh man, are you really from Chicago? All right.
I do like that. It's only at California Pizza Kitchen though.
All right. If and you probably don't eat fast food, but if you had to, what would be your go-to?
um, oh man, because I don't eat it anymore as much. I was always a Wendy's person. That spicy chicken sandwich. It's gotten crappier over the years, but I've always been a Wendy's spicy chicken and frosty guy.
All right. Oh, I love the frosty. I forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah. What was your first job?
yeah. First official job was at Pizza Hut. I made a fake birth certificate saying I was older so I could work there. It was back when you could copy and paste things and they, yep.
No
So I was,
photos, no.
yep, I was a Pizza Hut cook.
That's awesome. What is your ideal vacation?
Um, Somewhere with a beach that has real estate I could go explore.
So you can write it off. I get it. All
Not
right.
even necessarily that. It's just I can't. I get too bored. I love the idea of sitting on a beach, but man, after half a day, it's like, all right, well, then I wonder what things are going for rent around here. Like,
If you could have dinner with anyone alive, who would it be?
I have kind of a guy crush right now on Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom. I don't know if you know that podcast.
I don't. I don't. Chris
He's
Williamson.
he's an Austin guy. But it's probably one of my favorite podcasts right now.
Okay. What is one book you're currently reading or one that has impacted your business or life?
Oh man, there's a lot. I just got done reading the new book by Ryan Holiday. Um, and I think Who Not How is one of the biggest ones, and Go Giver is another one that's been impactful.
Go Giver was a really good book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have 20 different versions now, but that book, between that and Mr. Schmooze, I don't know if you read that one. That's an entertaining one too. But
No.
it's kind of adding value to other people.
Your
That's what gets it done.
Yeah, and your business partner Cliff just put me on higher on attitude, and I'm
Oh,
actually
I see. That's a great book.
actually
I
reading
mean
that
that
one.
is huge right there. So
That one
there's
right
been
there.
so many impactful books. I try to. I'm not a reader. I'm a listener, but I try to. I'll take down about 50 a year just listening.
Wow. Okay. What do you prefer? Prefer dogs or cats?
Dogs, cats will kill me. I'm allergic.
Allergic. Okay. All right. Mark, you're off the hot seat. If somebody was moved to want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can contact you?
All right, you guys support my new Instagram page. I'm late to the game. I only started a few months ago, but it's Mark Ainley, AINLEYREI.
Mark Ainley, REI.
And it's great. So if anything, me actually starting and owning that page myself, I've actually gotten a podcast guest. I've gotten business. I don't know. It's been a great experience for that. It's just funny how it's so hard to get a hold of people, but you go on Instagram, you message them, you get a message right back. Like famous people,
Interesting.
not famous
Really
people, like every day. Like it's really cool.
interesting. All right. Well, next
There's a
year
lot of
I'm gonna have
probably
you.
30
I'm
year
gonna
olds
have
right
you
now
back
laughing at
on
me
it.
say this, but like it's been great for me.
I'm gonna have you back on in a year. We're gonna talk about how your Instagram's blowing up.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. So
All right. And if you're listening to this and you're not a member of NARPM, best way to join is go to NARPM, NARPM.org, or give them a call at 800-782-3452. And if you are thinking about hiring a remote team member to help you with your podcast or just to handle back office work, try us, give us a call at or check us out at vpmsolutions.com, vpmsolutions.com, or feel free to email me direct at pete@vpmsolutions.com. Mark, thanks so much for being here, buddy. I really
eh,
appreciate it. Thanks,
thanks for
buddy.
having me, man.